Hello, and welcome to a special edition of the Campaign podcast with We Are Social. I'm Lucy Shelley, tech editor at Campaign, and today we're doing things a bit differently, and we are recording the podcast with a live audience. So hello, audience. So we are here at We Are Social's offices to explore the state of creativity in today's content-saturated, creator-driven world. With generative AI tools on the rise and low-effort trends filling our feeds, we are asking, is there still space for bold, original, and authentic storytelling, or are we stuck in a loop of sameness? And how can brands go beyond reflecting culture to start shaping it? Now, I'm not answering these questions, so joining me in the live studio to answer them, we have some wonderful guests. So please welcome Mike Antwi, Head of Social Media at ITV. Hello, Mike.
Hey, Lucy. Hey, guys. Great to be here.
And Karen Campbell, Head of Social at Tor Brands Marketing Lab for Contiki. Hello, Karen.
Hey, Lucy. Hey, everyone.
And finally, on the end, we have Simon Richings, Executive Creative Director at We Are Social.
Hi, Lucy.
Well, let's get straight into it. So I want to start with the creative climate. I mentioned in the intro about low effort trends, and I realize doing air quotes isn't great on a podcast, but you know, our feeds are full of cultural trends, memes, and reactive content. And I wanted to ask why you think this kind of content, really resonates so widely right now. I mean, Mike, should we start with you, ITV?
Look, we're in the age of the infinite scroll, right? And I think things like memes and this reactive type of content, I think it's like a caffeine shot to the algorithms at this moment in time. And I think the way I look at memes and reactive content, it's more like the campfire. And I think rather than, stories passed down through generations, it's sound bites and it's remixes of and different types of photoshopped cats, for example, that seem to be doing the job. And even at ITV, traditionally, this hasn't been something that we've really looked up until now. So I actually have a team in place that looks specifically at reactive content to be able to be more agile. It's not about the depth, it's more about the agility. And I think that's why memes are resonating with different audiences as much as they are right now.
Because I guess that point is it's about resonance, isn't it? Yeah. Being able to understand and, speak to your communities. I mean, Simon, in your position, firstly, do you want to explain to what some of this content is that we're talking about and why it resonates in 2025?
Like memes, reactive content, I think what they differ from everything else, apart from being they are smaller, easier to make, it's the fact that everyone is making them, right? It's not just the creative industry is making marketing and then that's the media that everyone gets to view. They are really simple ways for someone to say, this is how I feel about something. Generally, social media lets people care a tiny amount about a great many things and express that amount that they care. It's like the tiniest unit of attention or care. Those things aren't necessarily in competition with bigger things the industry might make, but they're always going to be important because everyone's making them. People are making them. They are what people feel about things. So they are, as you said, completely about resonance.
I mean, Karen, how do you find they fit in with other forms of content as in competition, but also to complement as well?
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, I think most of us like memes and trends because they're fun and they make us laugh, or they say something about us or our friends, and it's like, this is so me or this is so you. There's something about that just is really quick and easy to share with somebody, to say more than like a long voice note would take ages to explain what is just like you can see in a split second in a meme or a trend. And I think that has its place in terms of entertainment value, and you can tell like a little bit of a story with them really quickly, but then you have the balance with your longer form pieces or your kind of more crafted pieces, should I say.
I mean, we're sat here in an audience and a room full of people that love social, work in social, or are trying to at least anyway. So when we talk about memes and low effort, or some might say low brow content, do you think that's a fair judgment of this kind of content?
I don't think, I think the teams who are creating these content for brands, wouldn't see them as low effort a lot of the time. You have to have copywriters who are probably going to work on it. You're probably going to be sourcing videos or images that's suitable, or shooting video or images to fit in with these trends. And you've got to also have an understanding of the law a lot of the time of these memes, because you can end up in some really dodgy, cringe brand environments if you don't know kind of where this meme has come from, what the trend is, what's the kind of background to that. So I think that all is part of what goes into creating something that isn't just a copy paste. It's, you have to consider all of that stuff, and that's time. And also processes. If your processes aren't quick, you're going to be irrelevant. You're going to be that person, that brand that shows up a month after the trend is gone. You know, if you're posting about like being so demure now, like where are you? Where have you been? So I think it's that as well. So there's a lot of processes and effort that has to go into being relevant in this space.
Yeah. I mean, I think I asked that question on purpose to try and be slightly provocative, because, you know, that's what some people or other parts of marketing teams might believe, but the amount of skill and insight that goes into producing content like that.
For me, it's kind of creativity in its essence, in the sense that, you know, you're saying to somebody, you know, make me laugh, make me feel, make me think, make me question in the space of 8 seconds. And I think that's a really difficult, you know, thing to kind of achieve. As Karen was saying, it often takes a load of teams and a lot of insight and a lot of research to create that. It's kind of like when, like for example, when people will say a footballer just kicks the ball around, but that footballer has been doing that since the age of 6, and what you're now seeing is a little bit of the success, but not the whole journey. There's been tears. There's been blood, there's been sweat, right? And it's that kind of feeling for me. So to dismiss, you know, memes and reactive content as just purely lo-fi for me is the incorrect way to kind of view it.
And I think from those learnings as well, there's also mistakes, aren't there, which, you know, can help you form how you're going to do it later on.
I would say that lots of it is terrible, right? It is low effort and awful, right? But we tend to see the stuff that defeats the algorithm, right? That in that coliseum of what is best, that's the stuff that filters gets to the top. And you know, you can stack the odds in your favor by as Mike is saying, by having really good creative minds and having great insights in it. But you can never be sure until it actually lands in the world. So there's you know, as you say, there are failures sometimes, and it's a long game. This sort of weirdly, it's a long game. Like it's not about the client and the agency sitting around for 3 weeks deliberating over one thing. It's about getting stuff out into the world and seeing what impact it generates.
Is that quite difficult now as well? You know, when we talk about the legal processes, or, you know, even conversations and layers between agencies and client to create fast content that comes out quickly. I mean, does that require a very different kind of thinking and relationship?
It does, and different clients are at different stages of that journey. There's a lot for, you know, without naming specific clients, because that would be terrible. Even though we're going to edit this afterwards, I feel it would be terrible. Some clients, well, I would say 99% of clients have the ambition to do it, but they're often that their processes and systems and the way they've always done things hasn't caught up with that ambition.
You know, I think from this conversation and what we know, you know, social media is a great place for brands to start conversations and be part of conversations with, you know, their audience and their consumers. But when we talk about that, I mean, should brands be reflecting culture or shaping it? Like, where do we kind of, you know, sit in that balance, Karen?
This sounds like a cop-out, but I think you have to do both. And I don't think you can shape culture if you haven't been kind of fully engaged in culture in the first place. So I used to work on a campaign called This Girl Can, which was very, very much shaped culture. But for years, they were doing the research and getting the data to create the understanding and the insight to be able to create a campaign that shapes culture. And I think without that, you can't just jump in and say, we're going to change the way people think about something without being part of that culture and understanding that in the first place.
So I guess, you know, in the conversation that we've had so far, then it's about being both fast and slow.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to be able to spend the time to be authentic, to understand and reflect, and then get in there nice and quickly. But I mean, you know, Mike, would you give any advice about where the best place to start is for people that they want to be part of those conversations authentically?
I think the best place to start is to listen. And I think it's to really understand what your audience is trying to say, what the community is trying to say, and then obviously go into your research and insights to really kind of delve down into what direction you could go into. I think brands and agencies have the opportunity to mirror and also be a magnet for culture. And I think they also have a duty to shape, or subtly shape, what comes next with their own, I guess, perspective and their own insight. And I think that's the real opportunity. But yeah, for me, the starting place is always to listen.
I wonder, Simon, from the work that you do for clients, how that conversation goes, and helping them to reflect, but also be part of those conversations.
I think there's nothing wrong with reflecting culture as long as you do it in a really distinctive, entertaining way. Things are changing because there are so many brands, like huge companies of 50,000 people, that are trying to speak to people like they are also a Gen Z person in a bedroom, right? And going, hey, we're just like you. You're definitely not.
The people that say slay and think they can get away with it.
Well, exactly. So that is changing. There's a shift of lots and lots of brands trying to just do the reflection, just hold up a mirror. And sometimes that's not enough. I mean, there are ways around it. Do it well, fine. But we're starting to see in other areas, like there's a jewelry company called Alexis Bitar who, if you follow social, they've had a real big hit that they've got an internet show, an Instagram show featuring this character Margot, who's a kind of Devil's Wear Prada jewelry world person, and it's pure fiction, and the audience knows it's fiction. They're not trying to be authentic. They're not trying. This is real. This is our real founder speaking to you. And it's just really fun, and I think that's a reaction to what everyone else is doing, and more brands are starting to think of it in other ways. And it's actually quite an old idea, right? Which is, we're going to sell to you. We're selling to you, but to buy your attention, to buy your permission to do that, we're going to have a real fun time doing it.
It's a trade-off, I guess, isn't it? It's a transaction. But I think with that in mind, I think you've just given a very good example there about how creativity is evolving. I think, with AI, which is a topic of our conversation, how has that affected creativity in 2025? Is it a catalyst? Is it thriving? Is it evolving? Or are there risks involved with squeezing that out?
Yeah, it's all fine.
All right, next question.
AI it's another huge piece of change. I think it's unlike any other change before it. There's a thing that gets said quite a lot when people talk about AI in the creative industry, and they say, "Oh, it's just another tool." We've never seen a tool like this. I think this is really, really different. But I think where we get short-sighted as an industry is that we think about just the industry. We think, okay, how are we going to make work? How are we going to compete with other people making work? Where actually these tools are so easy to use, we've got to think about the context changing and the fact that our audience have got these tools. They're all going to be making stuff. And so how do we respond to that? And in a way, it's, in our DNA as the creative industry, we have to respond to it as it happens, right? I can't give you the prediction of what to do in 6 months' time. We have to look at what's happening now and respond to it.
I mean, Mike, we need to talk about AI and creativity. I think unhelpfully, people kind of often put them at a head, thinking, oh, one's going to beat the other, which obviously is not true, as you've just explained. But how helpful do you find those questions about, does it need protecting? I mean, how do you find creativity evolve within your teams?
I think one of the, as you were saying, it's almost like it is no longer, or creativity is no longer being gatekept, if that's the right phrase. And I think there is a kind of democratization of the ability to create in a way that wasn't there in the past. And I think the way to kind of protect it, I think, because there will be some sense of sameness if we all kind of have the same prompts, have the same desires, and we all kind of input that into AI. I think what will happen is we will have this homogenous, scale up of content. And I think what brands and agencies can do is invest in human tastemakers, people that have a perspective. Get people to kind of put the weird requests out there, the weird pictures out there. I think that's what we need, because that will offer that differentiation. In terms of protectiveness, I think that from an ITV perspective, that goes to things like IP, right? So one of the reasons why ITV may be slow to move in a particular space like that is around AI scripts, who then owns the the script versus and AI creativity and all of these different things. So there is an element of protection that needs to be worked on, and I'm sure that will come with time. But I think it also presents an opportunity for people to kind of be original and honest, and I think in their perspectives.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the taste point, isn't it? That's where humans' input in these creative processes is now even more important, to be able to decipher between what's good and what's not and get out the sea of sameness. I mean, yeah, Karen, what's that looking like in your teams, creativity and your relationship with AI to both produce fast content like we're talking about, but also the slower stuff?
I think from the teams that I'm currently working with, we're not really using generative AI too much to create content for numerous reasons. I mean, we're selling travel and we want the content to be as authentic as possible. And that means real travelers on trips in real destinations where we go. And so we're steering a little bit clear at the moment, but it's one of those ongoing discussions. But looking at the pace of AI, it's one of those when you think, we have to move quickly, or we have to decide what we're going to do quickly. And again, like you said, Mike, copyright and IP is really, really something that is probably the main thing that's holding us back at the moment with that, to make sure that the work that's being creative isn't derivative of some, an unpaid creative right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as you've all explained, our creative toolkit it's got another paintbrush in it, but it's expanding so quickly. I mean, within this conversation, there's probably been another update in something. Like I actually cannot keep up with it. My job's a nightmare. I hate it. But anyway, with generative AI, Simon, how is it unlocking new possibilities with originality? Because obviously we've spoken about how to get out of the sea of sameness. But in what ways are brands using it to be more original?
I don't think they hugely are at the moment, right? So we use it as a type of creative tool in some circumstances. We had a creative technologist who built a brilliant ChatGPT mod called Beat the Bot, which essentially was when you write a creative brief, this bot would immediately put out 10 ideas that answered the brief. And for the creatives, it was, well, if you can't beat any of these ideas, then these ideas aren't good enough, right? It was literally like use AI to generate the base level, do better than this. But it's getting better quicker and quicker. And as a collaborative, as a sort of brainstorm partner when you haven't got one available, that's pretty good. In terms of originality, though, what's striking is that if you following all the and you saw the VO3 stuff that Google put out over the last couple of weeks, the most amazing stuff, the most convincing stuff was not like a spaceship landing on the House of the Parliament. It was street interviews. It was YouTube style street interviews that were like, oh right, those are almost imperceptibly convincing now. The reason why that stuff's so good is because there's so much of it. There's so much of that stuff. So that is AI in the service of non-originality. So I agree with Mike. It's about taste making. It's the people that have learned their taste through learning the hard way, right? Learning different skills, whether that's art direction or copywriting or any associated field. They've developed that taste the hard way, and that's intrinsically linked to a particular set of technical skills. So those people are really well equipped to use these new tools. But then you've got what happens next. You've got a generation of people that haven't learned the hard way, but they're going to plunge straight into those tools.
I think that's a really important point, actually, about education and young people in the industry. The AI can, a lot of people say, can do a lot of the drudge work, but that drudge work is what has enabled you guys to make very quick decisions based on having to do all those processes. So I guess there's a change there that we've got to be looking out for as well, do you reckon?
Yeah, 100%. And I think, as I said about context, it's going to change things because what people will be making will change as well. The creative industry has to, its mission has always been to do stuff which is distinctive, stuff which stands out, and that partly is a reaction to everything else that is going on. You opened with marketing which might be low effort or meme based or very, very simple and lo-fi, but that is part of reaction to really, really polished hard sales messaging, right? So something that's more and more human. creativity in our industry should be this dynamic force that can respond to whatever it throws at us. If we try and like compartmentalize it into, it's these formats, this is best practice, this is how you make work. Best practice is by definition what everyone else is doing, and creative has to be something different.
I mean, Mike, I wondered if you could give us some advice or an insight about how at ITV you guys are using AI to continue to be original as well in your content that you're producing on social.
Look, I think we're really at the beginning stages of this, especially at ITV. Look, there's an ambition, and there are teams now being formed that look into this in way more depth that I could probably speak about. But I think some of the efforts that we're looking at is how, as Simon said, how to brief, how we use AI for our continuity in terms of, voice actors and different areas like that. But as I've mentioned, because of some of the legalities around AI and ownership and IP, it really is something that I would say we are still on, level one, with a view to move up through the ranks when possible. But yeah, I know that's not really helpful in terms of advice, but being honest, that's the position we're in at the moment.
Well, I guess it goes back to what you were saying earlier about being honest and listening.
Yeah.
To things that are even more important now. If they
Yeah,
weren't already
exactly.
We've only got a couple of minutes left, but
already.
I know it's zoomed by, hasn't it? Yeah, we've got about 5 minutes or so. But I want to talk about how to, whilst using AI to generate a lot of content in very quick times as well, how brands can stay authentic and honest. I know, Karen, you spoke about this a bit earlier about This Girl Can.
Yeah, I think both at This Girl Can and where I am currently with Contiki is from a kind of authenticity perspective, it's remembering the actual people. Like, AI is great to help us shortcut things sometimes. We use AI for social listening, which is excellent and saves us trawling through a lot of content. We lean quite heavily into UGC, and we did both at Contiki and at This Girl Can leaned really heavily into what your consumers or your customers or your audience are actually feeling and doing. So the people who go on our trips, on Contiki trips, they create content all the time. They tag us in all sorts of things. But it's actually speaking to those travelers. Sometimes it might just be licensing, but we also take those travelers on shoots. So our brand shoots are not models. They are people who've been on Contikis already. They know the trip. They can speak really confidently and comfortably in a really authentic way about what they do. And so a lot of our social content, we focus on the actual travelers themselves. AI helps as a kind of shortcut. We might even, I'd like us to get to the point when we're using AI to look at what people are saying about us as a brand and find those people. So to help us source those creators or those travelers in that way is really quite helpful for us, so that we can still get their real content out there.
I mean, we've spoken a lot about the connection with your audience, and Mike, when we're talking about remaining authentic and honest whilst using AI to help us generate content, I mean, is disclosure enough, do you think, just to say this is AI generated, or do you think brands and creators have a deeper responsibility, I guess?
Yeah, I think disclosure is a good starting point. I don't think it's the solution alone. Like any product you buy, let's just say, for example, even a food product, right? You go in and you see it and it says what's in it, right? But not only does it say what's in it, it says all the allergen advice and so on and so forth. And I think that's the kind of that's the route that AI should take, I think, in the future. Like I say, it goes back to my point around being honest and authentic. I think that resonates better with the audience, and I think in an era where I've been sat in rooms where there've been publications that have said, you guys posted this content or you've used this content, we're going to talk about it, and I'm like, that's fake. It's not us. I think disclosure and a protection in that sense is going to be vital for brands. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, Simon, is there anything to add on that? I mean, about how that, it's really about looking after that relationship, isn't it?
It is. I think mean, it's the age of declining trust, and I very rarely say this type of thing, but because I think brands actually do have a role to play. Like occasionally people say things like, consumers are demanding more from brands, and actually consumers don't care a jot about brands. But in this case,
I think they expect more though as well.
They might expect more, but then they'll immediately forget it and go on to think about the next thing. But I think in terms of trust, a strong brand can play a really, really powerful role. Like particularly an organisation like Contiki, there is this virtuous circle of, if you're making authentic content that are genuine traveller experiences, and then the Contiki brand gets known for that, right? So which means the content is listened to more and more, and the question of is this real or is this not is answered by the brand, it's that brand that is doing it. So that's how a brand might respond to this world. It's like, well, that's what we've got to gain if we do this right. If we get authenticity right, that's really, really powerful.
And then you remain in those conversations, and it's so much easier to then, if we go back to the beginning, to create that connective, reactive content that people can be part of that conversation much more easily. All right, well, we've got time for the final question, which is just about looking ahead, really. I mean, what excites you most about the, intersection of AI with the creator economy? Like you said, we're kind of at level 1. We've got many levels to go, and it's completely unpredictable, but quite exciting at the same time. So, yeah, is there anything that you're looking forward to seeing, or any things that you might be looking out for and thinking you need to kind of protect brands in that way? Or
I remember, when we were all basically locked up during COVID and TikTok blew up, and I remember saying to myself, I didn't know there were this many funny people. Mm-hmm. And I think the thing about the kind of AI, what that could allow us to see is that we didn't realize there were this many creative people out there. We didn't know there were this many people that had that vision in their mind, and now they have the tools to be able to kind of output what they've thought of. Mm-hmm. Because I'm not an art director. I'm not, I don't have those technical skills, but I might have had some idea in my head. And once I'd honed enough prompt skills, I could be able to generate something that was amazing, or we could start seeing some amazing content out there for people who just before didn't have the skill set or hadn't been able to go and learn these skills. So I think there's something about that that's quite exciting.
100. I think the democratization of creativity, exactly. And also in terms of bringing different kinds of people into the industry as well to become part of the, creativity teams within marketing and at brands. We can open it up by providing people with tools and people that think differently. Exactly. But Mike, what's exciting you at level 1? What's happening at level 10?
Level 1 at ITV, not everywhere else. Not joking. But in terms of, for me, what excites me is at a time where there is, if we're being honest, and I'm going to do the kind of abstract thing here where it isn't just about social, but at a time where there's lots of divisions in different groups of people, I think AI has a real opportunity to bring people back together. And I think that's what's exciting. I'm not sure what forum or what format or how it will kind of present itself, but there's genuinely a real opportunity to, like you said, you didn't know how many funny people there were, bring communities back together and get people, I guess, bring a bit of unity. I think we're so far apart in lots of different things in society, and I'll be interested to see how AI can play its part in that.
I really hope you're right, because I think, it would be
forever an optimist.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And then, Simon finally.
I think there's a big, how do we wade through the crap problem, right? I think there would be so much stuff generated, and we know the algorithms as they currently are really promote the most extreme content, whether that's extreme aesthetic or something much worse. So if we can get over that problem, I would strive for the kind of optimism of Karen, like that maybe it allows you to discover some people you wouldn't otherwise have discovered, that have got powerful tools that you wouldn't otherwise have had. But that's also tempered a bit with what Mike, you were saying earlier about gatekeepers, right? Gatekeepers, it sounds bad, but please show me someone that knows what they're doing, and then that gives me a clue that I'm not going to waste my time.
Well, that is actually all we've got time for today. But thank you so much for joining me, Mike, Simon, and Karen, for a great chat. And thanks everyone for listening.